All the panel members are connected now?
Yes.
So, yeah, okay. So, welcome to this panel session on 5G use cases and test labs initiatives. We have a very distinguished panel here with members representing the verticals coming from Europe, Korea, and India. And we have representation from the Government of India, from R&D labs. So it's quite a kind of expert panel which we go with looking at the 5G use cases and the test lab initiatives across the various geographies. So we have people representing from the east to west. So I'm sure that this panel discussion is going to be quite interesting, getting a wide range of views, and definitely any of the audience have questions, you can post the questions and we'll take them up in this session. So before we start, I'll just introduce the panel members. Let me start with Dr. DongKu Kim. He's a professor at the School of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, Yonsei University, and a founding chair of the 5G Forum Korea, which started in 2013. He is also a member of the 5G Plus Strategy Committee, chaired by the Minister of MIST in Korea. And his contributions have been very well recognized. He has received an Order of Service Merit from the Korean government in 2020 for the contribution towards the kind of making the first commercialization of 5G in Korea. And then he is also a recipient of the Dr. Evan Jacobs Academic Achievement Award in 2016, again for the work on 5G system and V2X technologies using lens-based MIMO. So welcome, Dr. Kim.
Thank you for great introduction. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to the panel.
Okay. So
can we? Who's gonna share the slide?
So, Dr. Kim, Dr. Kim, I can maybe introduce all the members and then can come back to you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Sure,
okay. I'm waiting.
Yeah. So let me then introduce Dr. Andreas Mueller. Andreas Mueller comes with two hats. He is the head of the communication and network technology in the corporate research department of Robert Bosch in Stuttgart, where he's coordinating the industrial 5G activities of Bosch across the different business units. And he's also chairman of the board of the 5G Alliance for Connected Industries and Automation. It's called 5G ACIA. So you'll be able to hear from Andreas on this forum as much. So welcome, Dr. Andreas.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Babu. Pleasure and honor to be here today to this at this very interesting event, and looking forward to a good discussion. Then, thanks a lot.
Sure. Now let me introduce Mr. David Lund. David Lund is the president of Public Safety Communication Europe and coordinator of a key activity at PSC called Broadway. Broadway is an interesting innovation activity. It's a key activity that looks at jointly procuring pre-commercial solutions and to enable mobile broadband for public safety practitioners. David represents PSC as a market representation partner in 3GPP, and is also contributing as part of the special task force on 5G standardization for vertical industries. So welcome, David.
Thank you very much, Babu. We look forward to the discussion.
Then let me then introduce Sri K Pathak. I think Pathak ji is well known to the audience here. He has been quite active in the 5G field, part of 5G World Forum and so on. He's a Deputy Director General International Cooperation in the Department of Telecom. And at DOT, he is looking after the work related to WTO, Economic Cooperation Agreement, standardization, then promotion of telecom exports and telecom centers of excellences. He is also a nodal officer for implementation of 5G technology. He also holds additional responsibility as a secretary at TEPC, that Export Promotion Council, and as the director of TCOE India. So welcome, Pathak ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Let me introduce Mr. Lalit Mohan. We already heard about IDRBT. So Lalit Mohan is also from IDRBT. He's a senior domain expert at IDRBT with more than 20 years of experience in banking technology, mainly digital banking. He's a principal investigator of the first India's first 5G use case lab, which you already heard about in the earlier expert talk. And he's also played a key role in several banking initiatives, digital banking initiatives, and also executed projects for organizations like IDRBT, Wells Fargo, World Bank, and so on. So welcome, Lalit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for making me part of the panel.
Thank you. So let me now start the discussion by just setting tone for this. As the topic says, it's 5G use cases and the test labs. So we are looking at two parts of it. That is the test bed as well the use cases. I think all of us are aware of 5G networks, how transformational it's expected to be, and the kind of wide variety of use cases that 5G is expected to support. And this brings a new kind of dimension that perhaps was not seen in earlier generations, definitely not to this extent. So we are looking at use cases that go much beyond a standard smartphone user. There are a lot of vertical industries, almost name it, you have it. They're all looking forward to 5G. That is the buzzword. And they think that 5G can kind of solve a lot of problems that they are facing with respect to communication infrastructure. So it's very important that we look at the right use cases, the right kind of mapping to the 5G technology, and make successful leveraging of 5G for those use cases. And one of the ways to do this is to have test labs. So I think that's what we also see from the discussions today, how the test labs can facilitate, kind of enable looking at these vertical use cases or even the technology use cases, and then see that we can have a good demonstration showcasing of these, which can then be taken to the deployment and actual usage. So with this, first I'll request Dr. Kim to give his views and his kind of comments on this topic. So over to Dr. Kim.
Yes. So can you share my opening slide?
Yes, Dr. Akash, are we sharing his slide?
Yeah, yes, great. Okay, again, thank you for inviting me. So in this brief 5-minute opening remark, I just want to share some of 5G industrial trials and the 5G public sector market going on in Korea. You know, my 5G subscription of Korea is approaching 10 million by the end of this year. And 5G trials over the last 3 years are all finalized at the end of this year. And some of the 5G public sector business projects have already started from 3Q this year. So we are in the middle of applying trial results into the real business project in the private sectors. So yes, this is page 2, right? So I have just a few words about who we are at 5G Forum and who's responsible of managing all the 5G trial use cases in the government side. So this slide is a commanding view of 5G organizations in Korea, and MSIT, the left is leading the strategy and policy, and the government interested in each organization. You can see the box, right? The many organizations with each missions. So in the diagram to your left, the 5G Forum is a public-private think tank for 5G promotion. And in the middle, the Giga Korea Foundation is the one responsible about managing all the 5G industrial trials in Korea. And in the box, you can see also NIA, NIA, and NIPA. They are the ones promoting 5G to public sectors. Okay, and I'm going to skip our missions. And to the right bottom, we have 8 expert committees and 8 working group and 1 TF. So next time, if you want to know more about the use cases, I might as well recommend expert speakers from some of our committees. So we can move on to next page, please. And these are the 5G industrial trials over the last 3 years, and they are all finalized by this year. And in this presentation, I could not walk you through every details on the use cases in this panel, but I'd like to share just some of the key results, especially on manufacturing trial. The third one from the top. Okay, so we can move on to next page, please. Yes, and this consortium leader is factory trial is SK Telecom, and First, they were looking at some 5G network stability of 3.5G and 28 gigahertz inside the various manufacturing environment. Six factories were participating in this trial, and they also looked at service feasibility as well. So in this trial, they developed some specific use cases of the cloud-based machine learning platform. You can see 4 boxes. They are AGV and AMR solution and machine vision and AI-based remote maintenance service and flexible production line service. We can move to next page, please. And what they learned in this trial in 6 different locations is that the first 28 gigahertz propagation in the manufacturing environment, line of sight or non-line of sight, they turns out to be much better than people think, and which satisfy the requirement of services. They also developed a 3.5 gigahertz and 28 gigahertz dual band 5G B2B router, which is working on right now, non-standalone 5G, and they will be upgraded for standalone network by November. And they apply these routers to control the moving, especially moving robot in the production line. And most of the trial sites are actually automobile part production factories. And this module comply all the industrial requirement for working 365 days and 25 hours. So we can move on to the next page, please. And these are the factory location site of participating 5G trial in Korea. In all, 6 factories were participating, but I just missed the 2 other factories. Okay, so we move on to the next page, please. And all those are the result of the 5G industrial trial will be shared in the 5G Vertical Summit on November 17th and 18th, and you are welcome to join in. And also the outcomes will be published in the 5G Forum white papers. I think early next. The first part of next year. Okay, we move on to next page, please. This is my last this slide. You know what the government put out Korea New Deal Initiative up to 2025 last July, and the idea is to help recover country's COVID-19 hit economy and ultimately transform Korea into the complete digital society. And the main goal is to create the 2 million jobs by 2025. It has 2 pillars. One is going digital, and the other one is going green. But I just want to focus on the digital aspect of this initiative, which is again called the Digital New Deal. The goal is to widen the 5G public market and adapt 5G and AI in the public sectors of national infrastructure, so that national infrastructure will be getting smarter by 2025. So I just bring up the ongoing Digital New project, summer project. So among those, you can see the third dot in the ramping of infrastructure to get a 5G-friendly environment. You can see that the ministry, our ministry, MSIT, and local governments is right now transforming their wired line secured network to the mobile secured 5G network right now. And through the Digital New Deal, the government hopes that the ICT industry, including MNO, will have a better chance of developing money-making, profitable 5G private industry business in terms of many experience they got through the Digital New Deal project. So I hope this will help you better understand the current status of a 5G use cases going on in Korea. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. I would like to check with Dr. Kim if you would be staying for some more time, or you have the constraint that you mentioned earlier.
So yeah,
Okay.
I gotta leave soon.
Okay, so maybe I'll just have one question for you. For others also, I think Dr. Kim has some logistical constraint due to the corona situation in Korea, where the offices close. It's night time there, 10 p.m. in Korea and Seoul. So that's something which we couldn't envisage earlier. So let me ask one question to Dr. Kim, and then he would like to take leave earlier. So the question I was looking at, I think Dr. Kim, you gave a good presentation on the situation in Korea, which has done a lot of progress in terms of 10 million subscriber base is quite good, and also a lot of industry trials across sectors. So what I would like to check with you is that with all the experience that you have now demonstrated in these various industries, what kind of feedback you get which can put back to the technology improvement, or is that the mechanism in terms of how the experience of the customer base can be kind of rolled back into the 5G technology improvements and so on? If you can come on this side.
What we have learned is that through the trials, the providers and users, users in the various vertical sectors, they found a number of applications such as low latency requirement, such as a moving robot. So what they found is there is some kind of a use cases that really needs 5G. But what they found difficult is that actually right now, over the last 3 years, the price of devices and modules for B2B in many business, many vertical cases, the affordable price device availability is a top priority. Still, what they found was that the 5G devices and module is as much as 5 to 10 times expensive than Wi-Fi. The real field guy in the many particular the sectors, they compare 5G and Wi-Fi. They're not comparing LTE and Wi-Fi. They're comparing 5G and Wi-Fi. And what they really found out is that the price and affordability is a top priority. And but Germany and Japan and UK, they're promoting the dedicated spectrum for vertical use. So it'll take some time, but I think the old players like German and Japan and the UK and Hong Kong, they're promoting a kind of a dedicated spectrum. I think we're 5G network more available in factory sectors, like as well as other vertical sectors. It'll lower the devices prices. So that's we learned from the trials to actually make 5G network successful in vertical area.
Yes, Babu sir, he just completed. I think you lost connection in between. Dr. Kim just completed his statement.
Hello. I think there was some connection break.
Yes, I think Babu sir, his internet connection is fluctuating. Would request any of the other chair members to take it forward, if you wish so. Yeah, sorry for the technical glitch.
And, was it across?
Let's wait for a few seconds.
Dr. Kim, could you finish?
Dr. Kim, do you like to rephrase your sentence or say it once again, like Mr. Babu got disconnected in between?
Yeah, hi, yeah, Babu. Dr. Kim has completed his statement. You can take it forward.
Rajesh sir, I think still Babu sir has some connectivity issue. He keeps joining and disconnecting.
Okay, sure. So I may then maybe call upon next panelist, either Mr. Mueller or Mr. Lund, to take it forward. Maybe give their thoughts on the 5G use cases and the test lab initiatives in their domain. Yeah. So maybe Mr. Mueller, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, and I will try my best. So also now with video. Thanks again for having me. And let me just share my slides. So I have the pleasure to spend now 5 minutes talking about the manufacturing vertical, which from my perspective is one of the most interesting and attractive verticals. Just a second, I somehow have some problems as well. And of course for good reasons, because there is a lot of value that you can unlock with 5G manufacturing. On the one hand, because a lot of value is still created in manufacturing, and at the same time, the investments that you have to make to unlock these investments are relatively limited. I mean, it has been mentioned also by Professor Kim, so that's in some countries there is local spectrum available, for example. In general, no matter how you want to use 5G, you don't have to wait until there is a nationwide 5G network available, but we usually need only local 5G connectivity in a plant, which can be realized with a couple of base stations typically. And of course, this can be done much faster and in much more flexible way than the national rollout, which is always a bigger challenge. So now you should also see the slides, and I just have put together really 3 or 4 slides to give you a little bit an overview of the topic. Maybe just let me say also a few words about 5G ACIA again, in case that people don't know yet. So the 5G Alliance for Connected Industries and Automation has been established about 2.5 years ago, and it serves as the global forum for the ICT industry and the OT industry, as we say, so the classical industrial players, to jointly drive and shape industrial 5G. So it's really bringing the different worlds together and jointly making sure that industrial 5G manufacturing becomes a major success at the end. Okay, so but what is this all about? So here is a high-level view why 5G matters to the industrial domain. Of course, we have the evolution of mobile communications towards 5G, but of course, there's also major change compared to previous generations. Because previously, it was always in one way or the other about connecting phones and connecting people. There were major shifts from analog to digital, from voice calls to high bandwidth data transmissions, but it was always somehow about connecting phones and connecting people. And with 5G, of course, this is very different, because from the very beginning, there was a very strong focus on connecting all kinds of things in the Internet of Things. And this is enabled by all the new capabilities that 5G comes along with. And I guess most people in the audience are very well aware of that, because this has also been presented several times already during this event. So this started a couple of years ago, and then independent of these developments, we have the developments towards the 4th industrial revolutions, the industrial IoT, smart manufacturing. So there are different terms basically referring to the same thing. And connectivity per se is a key enabler for that. So we want to connect all kinds of machines, sensors, actuators, controllers, people and machines, to really merge the physical world of production with the virtual IT world, if you want. And now it's quite obvious that we can bring these 2 different mega trends, if you want, together. So to use 5G in a factory, in this way, we can lift Industry 4.0 to the next level and achieve unprecedented levels of flexibility, efficiency, productivity, and also ease of use, so to make it easier for the people working in a factory to monitor what is going on, to learn new things and things like this. So this is the high-level view a bit. And if you now have a closer look at potential use case categories, that's what you get. Of course, 5G is a natural choice if you want to connect mobile or portable assets, forklifts, automated guided vehicles, or also tools like assembly tools that you use for tightening screws and things like this. So these are mobile and portable devices. That's why we need wireless connectivity anyway if you want to connect them. The same holds basically for moving and rotating parts, and there are many of them in a factory. This could be a robot arm, for instance, but could also be a pick-and-place application where we take things out of a box and put it maybe into another box or something like this. So here we are traditionally using track chains and slip rings and similar things. But usually nobody likes these devices because they are quite expensive. You have to maintain them, you have to replace them from time to time. And also this restricts you in how to build a machine, for example. So if we can realize this wirelessly using 5G, then we can also build a machine in a more compact way and different ways compared to before. Then wireless sensors is also natural application, so that we can also support really a very high density of sensors, enabling then applications like condition monitoring, predictive maintenance, and things like this. Human-machine interaction is another major category, with new applications like augmented reality, virtual reality in a factory, which can be used for training purposes, for remote support, but also for monitoring a plant, for instance. And also a lot of value is in positioning, actually. So of course, a 5G infrastructure in principle cannot just be used for connecting devices, but also for determining the position of a device, in theory also with a very high accuracy. And knowing where things are is a very valuable information in the factory. So you can use it for assets tracking, so just that you can determine where your things are, but also for supporting the navigation of an automated guided vehicle and many more things. And if this is integrated into the same infrastructure as your communication solution, then of course you don't need separate systems. You save costs, and you also reduce the complexity basically of this infrastructure. It's an enabler for a highly modular production, so that we can easily reconfigure production lines and maybe produce something in the morning and something completely different in the afternoon. And this only works if we have these different modules which we can flexibly and easily rearrange without having to worry about the cables and so on, for example. Also, retrofitting is a very big topic, so that we can upgrade existing machines in an easy way and maybe add some sensors or some cameras, whatever. And that's important because usually machines in production are used for a very long time. So this can be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or even longer. But of course, he wants to maybe make use of the latest advances in artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and so on. And then you have to be able to upgrade your machines in an easy way. And also here, 5G can support. But maybe the last symbol here is the most relevant one, because if you only look at a single use case, typically you find other solutions, other technologies which can do this as well. Even if you have a Wi-Fi system, right? If you have a Wi-Fi system and there's just one connection, nobody's disturbing you, then Wi-Fi is perfectly fine for almost all applications. But it's getting difficult if you have a wide variety of different use cases and applications, also with very diverse requirements. And especially if you want to have many of these use cases happening at the same time. And that's exactly where 5G can play out its full strengths, so that we can distinguish different quality of service classes, different quality of service streams, and that we have also a one-size-fits-all solution. So as I mentioned with the positioning already, we don't have to run a Wi-Fi, a Bluetooth system, ultra-wideband for positioning, and so on. It can all be 5G. So there's the high potential to come to a convergence in a factory in future. So what are important enablers for industrial 5G? And some of the things I guess I've already mentioned now. Of course, it is industrial grade quality of service that 5G offers. So we have a need for extremely high data rates, for high definition 4K video cameras, for example. We have a need for ultra reliable low latency communication. If you want to close a control loop over the air, then we need a 1 millisecond latency. We need 5 or 6 nines communication service availability. So really the maximum that 5G offers, basically. And there's also need for massive machine type communication. If you look at the process industry, for example, where large areas are covered in the oil and gas industry, for instance, and then you might have really a high density and a high number of sensors, actuators, and other devices that need to be connected. It's then also this solid quality of service differentiation that I just mentioned, that we can support very different use cases with very diverse requirements at the same time. There's also major technology building block, which is called TSN over 5G, time-sensitive networking over 5G. So time-sensitive networking is basically the next generation real-time Ethernet that will also find its way into factories in the area of wired industrial communication. And 5G will support many of these TSN features out of the box. That means a 5G network, which is of course a very complex thing, offers the same APIs, the same interfaces as a TSN switch. And then to the outside world, it actually looks like a simple TSN switch. So, and this is very powerful then for a very easy integration and a smooth migration to 5G in future. Also, the non-public networks are very important for the industrial domain, so that it is possible for the first time to deploy local networks inside a factory, which are somehow decoupled from the public networks. And this is not black and white, I have to say. So it's not either a public network or a complete standalone private network or non-public network, but there are also now many different flavors of different cooperation models, for example, with an established mobile network operator. So you could say, okay, the radio access network is shared between the public network and the private network, but you have your own core network in the factory. And there are many more possibilities to do that. But from the viewpoint of a manufacturer, what is important is that you have more control of the security, of the configuration of the network, the performance that can be achieved, and also more freedom, which is good from a business perspective. And finally, also integrated positioning, of course, is really a key enabler, as I already mentioned. This has not been in the focus of the standardization activity so far, looking at release 15 and release 16. Some basic positioning is supported, but the accuracy is still in the order of several meters, I would say. But now in release 17, this is a priority topic, I would say, in 3GPP. And of course, also then in future releases, the developments will probably be ongoing. And theoretically, it should be possible, if you look at the physics, to get an accuracy in the order of several centimeters. And that would be very, very good, of course, for many industrial applications and use cases. And that's already it for my short teaser talk. Thanks a lot for inviting me again, for the attention, and I hand it back, I guess, Babu, to you for the time being. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas, and extremely sorry for the interruption I had, and maybe I couldn't even see what the problem here is. But I have switched to 4G now, and once you have 5G, perhaps it could be more reliable, and we may not have this kind of a problem, perhaps. So back to this, thanks, Andreas, for giving a wide kind of picture on the manufacturing and the industry vertical requirements, use cases, and also highlighting some of the technological requirements that come from 5G, which cannot be met as such from the 4G technologies as is present now. So next, let me kind of request David to provide his views on this topic.
Okay, thank you, Babu. Bear with me a moment while I share the slides. Okay, do you see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I can't see them on my screen. No problem. So, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. I'll give you a short presentation of my domain, which is, of course, public safety. So, I'm with Public Safety Communication Europe Forum, and we are a forum of three parts primarily. So, research, industry, public safety, and users. So, we were put together more than 10 years ago now to foster the dialogue, arrange the dialogue between the public safety end users and research and industry, and really with the purpose of improving public safety communication capability. So looking back more than 10 years ago, we were in the position of deploying tetra radio technologies, going from analog to digital. So push-to-talk voice and short data were at that time the key innovation, and now they're still in use, highly trusted, but really aging very quickly, because the tetra radios, the tetrapole, there's WiMAX in there, they're all stuck in a kind of lower economic volume world, so they never saw the progression in terms of innovation. So our dialogue here has led to a major piece of work funded by the European Commission, which seeks to bring public safety responders into the same, at least, world that we will have as consumers. And in fact, it needs to be better than consumers. We have public safety responders all over Europe. They need to work together. They currently don't work together, and well, they do in many cases, but not in a full pan-European perspective. And the reason is that their communication networks are different in every country. So you will see in different countries we've deployed Tetra, Tetrapol, WiMAX, whatever. And Tetra, of course, being an industry standard, an ETSI standard, are deployed in a closed way in their country. And there's reasons for that. It's highly secure. It's a physically separated mobile network with its own spectrum. And it's seen as very trustworthy and secure and certainly resilient by public safety responders. However, it's an aging technology. And this is still working in the 2G world. And we're here today talking about 5G. So there's a big difference really in what the capabilities are, the communication capabilities, the information exchange capabilities between what consumers use and what public safety can use. So think about it like this. If you're a criminal, you can use a smartphone, you have rich information, you can exchange information and move around Europe, move around the world and carry out your bad activities. If you're a public safety responder, on the other hand, you can push, you can speak, and that's it. So we have an information superiority problem, actually, from this. And it's to do with this differentiation of the technologies and the economic scale of the use case, the vertical sector. And so over the years, we were, public safety, in fact, was one of the first verticals to address 3GPP. We said, okay, we need to improve our communication technologies, but we don't really want to build this from scratch again. You know, Tetra itself was developed in parallel almost to the GSM technology, but GSM, of course, has been able to progress through 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G because of the economic scale of commercial mobile, consumer mobile, whereas public safety hasn't been able to do that. So public safety addressed 3GPP. SA6 was formed within 3GPP for mission critical services, and you know those standards have developed reasonably well since release 13 onwards, and of course we're now release 17 and thinking about release 18. So public safety standards in 3GPP span the standards from release 13 and up now until the 5G standards. So what we see in deployment is a mixture of the 4G and the 5G world. It depends what part of the system we're looking at. So this is what we aspire to. This is what we like to see. Each country around Europe is planning to transition to a broadband for public safety service. But you can see each country will implement its own. Each country, of course, has its own commercial mobile operators as well. Some countries will implement their own mobile network, some for public safety, a dedicated one, some will use commercial mobile because they already have the coverage, and some will be a mix. Each country will do its own different thing. However, coming back to the needs of the first responders, they don't care how the technology works. It's just got to work when they need it, where they need it, and with whoever they need to communicate with. And we call this operational mobility. So we see the network becoming, in the responder's view, just one network. So you can go from Spain to Sweden to help in the forest fires, and you take your phone or radio or whatever you want to call it then, headset, and it just works when you reach Sweden. And you can hit the ground and you can help with the fires without any extra training, without any extra adoption of new technology or anything like that. So this is our goal in Broadway project. Okay, so the Broadway project is a pan-European funded project by the European Commission. We have about 14 million euros to spend, and we are currently looking at pre-commercial procurement. So this is innovation procurement. Please come along with those standards, implement them, put them into place, and let's have responders try to use it. Our partnership is 11 European countries at ministry or agency level, and they're on the right of this diagram here. So we have a reasonable representation of public safety across Europe. They currently operate the Tetra networks in their country, and we cover around 1.4 million responders across our own team. Likely more if you consider it towards broadband, because of course it's going to be a cheaper service. what we've done in the last 2 to 3 years is prepared a formalized public procurement request for tender. We have a competition in place and suppliers bid towards that. Currently, we have 3 supply teams and it's competitive. So these 3 supply teams will develop their version of their solution to our problem of achieving this operational mobility system of systems. So we have Airbus, Frequentis, Leonardo leading the 3 teams, and there's about 33 companies grouped across those organizations in those teams. And so what we will see, we're currently expecting to see demonstrations in November of this system, and in April we will see live prototypes. Next year we will select the best 2 suppliers with the best 2 solutions and take them forward to a full pilot system deployment. And that pilot system deployment will happen within 2021 and 22, with the final pilots ready in May to June of 2022. And so we have these pan-European test beds, really. It's a big, at least 2 test beds. And what we see there is we're aiming for technology readiness level 8. So something that's live, it's deployed, it's in place, and it's usable. It's not the final system, because we haven't decided if that's the final system we need yet. But at TRL8, we were able to put it into use, give it to real responders, practitioners, and see how it's going to work for them. There's a lot of technical validation activity there. Does it technically work? How do we test it? We move beyond the testing routines that have been developed through, for example, the ETSI mission critical plug tests, which are largely lab-based, and we move this into practical real-life deployed testing, so end-to-end testing in a real-life situations. We have practitioner evaluation, which is the most important element of what we do. And we have more than 60 organizations across Europe, police, fire, emergency medical, coast guards, and so on. And it's up to them really to evaluate the utility of the Broadway system. And the way we do that, we have a methodology set up, which is the outcome of a previous research project, in fact. And we will be, we're currently in the process of planning the method, developing the methodology, developing the evaluation process and evaluation criteria. And when we have the prototypes in April and the pilot system in 2022, we will be able to have a real opinion of public safety practitioners using this 4G, 5G system in real life use at that point. So I'll finalize my point and say, well, look, technical test beds are important, but actually end user evaluation is crucial. We make a difference here to Andreas' presentation where 5G is seen as, and it really is that enabler of things being connected as well as the people. In our case, it's the people being connected, but actually of a higher level of security and resilience need. There will be wearables in there as well and IoT, but really it's about bringing up the security and resilience capability of the mobile broadband capability. So thank you for listening. I'll hand back to Babu, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thanks for giving an excellent picture of the public safety communication scenario in Europe, and also kind of giving the importance of interoperability and the customer verification of the solutions. Thanks for that. So let me request now Pathakji to give his views on both from industry and the common point of view.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
So, good evening and good morning to our friends from Europe. In fact, we also, India feels that 5G is evolutionary as well as revolutionary due to its application. We have been the consumer of technologies, though we started along with the world in 2G, 3G as well as in 4G. But there has been negligible participation of our Indian SMEs, startups in the development of technology part. We feel that 5G is essential for Industry 4.0, and adoption of 5G will immensely benefit our economy, as well as this will provide us an opportunity to participate in 5G technology market. Keeping all this in the view, Government of India set up a high-level forum in 2017, and 3 government departments who were otherwise working in silos came together and come up with a recommendation making India 5G ready. In the Making India 5G ready, they gave 7 specific recommendations that for India we have to work on spectrum technology, spectrum management, we have to change our regulation, we have to constantly participate in standard making process, and more important that India should also contribute in application development, which will be, I think, very important for 5G adoption in any country. And I think, as has been shared earlier, that Department of Telecommunication has been a service provider department, but for the first time we ventured into the technology development, and that's why we funded this end-to-end 5G testbed as well as first use case lab in financial sector. I think I have just gone through the presentation of others, our colleagues from Korea, Europe, and realized that they are all working in industrial automation and other things. But in case of India, it's the financial sector which came forward very early, because we want the financial inclusion even in rural areas, how we can take this benefit of digital connectivity to the last person in the village also for making the financial transaction. So that's why I think IDRBT, subsequently Mr. Lalit Mohan will be sharing his presentation. One thing is different from other countries here in India, though even we have also worked with for the smart commerce, banking, intelligent transport, and then smart agriculture, smart cities, smart grid, and Industry 4.0, smart education, that is very much important for India, especially during this COVID and post-COVID. I think that will be new normal or work from home, and smart health. So this is important, but there is in setting up a use case, we are facing some problem that user industry is not coming forward. I think there is some lack of clarity. They always say that whatever you are saying to us, even they can achieve the same with the 4G. So we are in reality we're facing some problem in setting up the use case in the country. However, we are constantly working with the vertical industry, since for the first time even vertical industries also they are realizing that there has to be a use case. So I'm sure that we'll be able to do that, and we will also be working on the first public safety, video surveillance, traffic management. They are very relevant for India, and connected cars. So with this, I think this is what I would like to share, and subsequently I can take up the questions if required.
Thank you, Pathak-ji. I think thank you for giving the kind of focus that as a country you're looking at, and then how it's different in some ways from some of the other geographies, especially looking at health, education, finance, which are quite important for a country like a developing country like India. Thanks for giving the comments, and now let me now request Mr. Lalit Mohan. I think already we have kind of got an idea of what use case labs that IDRBT has and the kind of good work they're doing. I request now Mr. Lalit to give more details of this and give his views on the use cases and the test labs that they're looking at.
Sure, thank you, sir. Akash, can I request you to pull on the presentation? Akash, yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think traditionally IDRBT, this is a slide that anyway Abhishek covered, and we thought as a business continuity we should have it, and that's what IDRBT or banking technology is always worried. But traditionally, IDRBT was formed when we want to say, yeah, there are machines that organizations like banks can use, and we went about enabling banks to start adopting digital technologies. I had first-hand experience when we had to tell banks that, yeah, there is a cloud computing and that would certainly help banks. From that kind of resistance, today, almost every bank in India is talking about cloud computing and how they can do more on the cloud computing. I could foresee pretty soon, as we started interacting with the banks, that they would start questioning us. We don't have connectivity in the rural. We have these problems. Now, what are you asking us to do 5G? And believe me, in 3 to 5 years' time, they will say, yep, what else we can do more on 5G? We went through that experience. So we have done it. We know what it means. And we are confident banks will certainly adopt 5G in very near time. Right. Next slide. I don't think. Yeah. I just want to. This is also covered by Abhishek. I only wanted to spend a couple of items in this. One is the narrowband IoT. More specifically on connectivity, we saw some opportunity in our interaction with Professor Kiran Kuchi. We realized when we went to the field to see what are the challenges that the rural banks have, what are the challenges that business correspondents who are working as agents for banks have. One challenge that we have seen is the coverage. We are not getting into the economies of discussion, but in terms of narrowband IoT and the micro ATMs or the POS machines, the point of sale machines that those agents carry, they are not suddenly network heavy. They are more of few packets of data, but they certainly need better coverage. We are seeing an option of NB-IoT becoming probably an option for those micro ATMs, so that when the direct benefit transfer happens today, typically the customer, the moment there is a connectivity, he would withdraw the money that is available in his account. There is that lack of financial literacy that's not helping the economy, and we are hoping with narrowband IoT the connectivity improves and there is better understanding or better confidence in the system, and that would also certainly help the end customer. Second, we have been in very initial dialogue on frugal 5G, but certainly that is something that is catching our attention. We are trying to reach out IIT Bombay and also a startup that's working with IIT Bombay on how we can adopt frugal 5G. In fact, one of the panelists today in the next session, Abhijit Chowdhury, we are also talking to see how we can help this cause of AtmaNirbhar Bharat and look at what we can take the help of the existing startups to help either on network slicing or on frugal 5G kind of situations. I request to go to the next slide. So this is a slide that's catching our mind in terms of the network slicing. When we interact with CISOs, I'm not talking now, but about 7-8 years, one famous quote that we used to hear from CISOs are the Chief Information Security Officers. They used to say, Internet was not created for banking, and now you're asking us to use for banking. And there are obviously some hassles and there are some gaps or security issues, and the customer loses money. Who are we blaming? Because Internet was not created for banking, and probably that's an option for us now to relook at what 5G can do, what network slicing in specific can do. So we are certainly interested to understand network slicing and look at options of having a slice that gives the banking specific QoS. Today in India, we run Infinet, Indian Financial Network, which was set up actually at IDRBT, which is connecting all the banks for their interbank transactions, or even when they transact with the central bank. So transactions like NEFT, RTGS goes through Infinet. Similarly, NPCI Net, which was born out of IDRBT, connects all the ATM switches. Is 5G a third option for us to look at with connected devices, massive connected devices? And I'm not there yet, Akash. Yeah. So we are certainly interested to explore network slicing more in detail, and when Andreas was showing, or when David was showing, yeah, they have taken cases for the manufacturing or the public safety, and we remove that word and put a banking word. A lot of things are still common for us. So network slicing is certainly our biggest area of interest. Next slide. The way that we are operating the test bed is obviously we need some compute, we need some storage, we need some applications that we need to develop. So we are trying to leverage what is available in the open source. So we are looking at what is available in with Apache Foundation, right from core banking solution. What are the mobile apps that are available? So that way, the organizations need not share what they have as their applications. When I say organizations, the banks need not share, but they can leverage what we have as open source, so that fintechs, startups in other forms, ideators can leverage the IDRBT testbed kind of a sandbox for them to do some banking transactions and see, get a feel of, yeah, this is making a difference for the end user community. So other than building that sandbox for banking apps, we have employees from banks working with us. We have collaboration from Union Bank, Punjab National Bank, Bank of Baroda. Similarly, on the rural sector, which we are working with Telangana Gramina Bank on the NB-IoT. In one of the cases, we actually had the POS service provider visit IIT Hyderabad along with us to experiment what is possible with NB-IoT. So we are certainly looking at the rural banks as well to drive some more use cases. On top of that platform, we have the banks, we have our own researchers, we have our own engineers. We are collaborating with IITs. We are also collaborating with a lot of industries. AWS is one of the recent organizations that we are looking at collaborating. We had a couple of discussions with CDOT. We are confident, I don't know if Mr. Prashant is on the call, but yeah, we are confident that we would go about trying to leverage what CDOT is already doing. Similarly, with a lot of startups, whether it is Needle or whether it is Nevati or Tejas, we are certainly looking forward to leverage what is already being built in India and build about applications that make sense for banking community. So our mission is about open source, open standards, ensuring that IP of the startups or the organizations is well protected. As IDRBT, other than facilitating, we are also looking at if we can build some common platforms. When I say common platforms, I'll take the example of virtual reality, augmented reality, where we have done some use cases already. If we can build a software development kit on top of which banks can understand, yeah, this is domain specific software development kit, so they don't have to think through how does a branch look like. They don't have to think through in terms of what is security that is required when there is a VR app that is running for a banking customer. Right? So we are trying to build those software development kit on which the applications can be built easily. On a similar note, we are trying to look at IoT. We are trying to look at video. We'll see how it goes. It's just about 3 months that we started this exercise. But we are confident. We have done it in the past. We are confident that we would be able to do it pretty soon. Right. What is interesting is this is what I spoke so far is only banking. Thanks to Pathak sir, he has increased our domain beyond banking and said even we have to look at use cases for insurance and capital markets, and we potentially see insurance is going to be much more exciting with the level of frauds that they currently go through today. So we are certainly looking for a lot of collaborations, inputs, guidance from the industry partners as well as other countries which have already started this exercise. That's pretty much what I had.
Okay, thanks Lalit for giving the crisp overview of IDRBT's activities regarding this use case lab. I would like to check with Chair in terms of how much time do we have and how many questions can we take in this session.
All right, Mr. Rajesh, do you like to answer this? Actually, we are supposed to start the next session at 7:20 after a small break.
So, okay. So, should we have just 1 or 2 questions and go ahead? Is that allowed? I want to check with Rajesh. Are you hearing us?
Just give me a second time, so in case.
Yeah, sure.
Or probably maybe you can take a question in the meantime. Yes, we can go for another 3-4 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Rajesh, and thank you. So
we're actually in a break right now, so we can always break into it. Yeah, so that's
okay. Thank you, Rajesh. So I'll just take give 2 questions. I think some of the questions are being answered on the comments, and maybe we'll not cover those. But one of the points maybe we could look at is we have 2 kind of focus on the test beds. One is a technology focused test bed, other one is a vertical focused or a kind of a use case focused test bed. I think the question is for the use case demonstration, which ones would kind of be helpful for building that ecosystem? Perhaps I would check with first with Dr. Andreas whether this is something which has been looked at by 5G ACIA in terms of the kind of wide variety of manufacturing industry there.
Thanks. Could you maybe just repeat the question? I didn't get the actual point. I'm afraid of the connection was a bit shaky on my end.
Yeah, sure. So I was mentioning that we have 2 flavors of the testbed that normally are developed. One is a technology-focused testbed, which looks at 5G technology and the various features that 5G provides. And the second are more of a use case lab, which focus on the specific vertical, like what IDRBT, Lalit, Mohan talked about, is more focused on finance. So when you look at a wide range of use cases to be looked at from a lab point of view or a testbed point of view, how do we, for example, 5G ICA, if you have to meet several kind of ethical industries, what kind of use case labs would you look at?
Yeah, no, thanks. Now got it. Sorry for that. So, of course, use cases are very important and test beds and so on in general. So because also, if you look at now industrial applications, and that's the focus of 5G ACIA, with really use cases with very demanding requirements. So we really need the maximum that 5G can offer. And many features now have been standardized by 3GPP, so which should support these requirements. But what is still missing is the validation that you can really get these parameters and this performance in a real-world environment. And of course, a factory environment is also very different from an office environment, for example. So therefore, testbeds in general are very important. So in 5G ACIA, we just defined and set up our own framework. That means different members basically can get together and build up a testbed together. And as long as they satisfy certain criteria, then they can apply to become a 5G ACIA testbed and then get support in promotion and so on. And of course, the goal is also then to have results from different testbeds which are comparable to each other, because you always can fine-tune your system in one way or the other. But if we then have similar results from different testbeds, so then it's helpful for increasing the level of trust and confidence in the results. And there, of course, it's then essential to really have, use case testbeds, making use of the technologies, of course, right? But it's always about then some use cases, so maybe a robot with what a controller is in a local cloud, or a massive sensor network in a factory and so on. So that's still, in 5G ACIA, we are still at the beginning of this. So we just started this, but I think in the next few months, there will be many announcements of 5G ACIA testbeds that are established and that we will also then talk about a bit more.
Okay.
So maybe I'll leave it here for a moment. Back to you, Babu.
Yeah, thank you, Andreas. So maybe another question that I could check with both David and Lalit would be this. I think you already heard from Pathak ji that it's important to get the confidence of the users when we have the test beds, and that's important in terms of taking the kind of 5G also to the market. And on the other side, we have like what Dr. Kim said, the feedback that comes from these test beds and industrial trials, and we kind of feedback and give inputs back to technology as such. So from your experience from both public safety and from the finance point of view, if you could kind of touch upon this and say how the testbeds have benefited both giving confidence to user community and also kind of helping giving it back to any kind of forums like 3GPP. Can I first request David to respond to this?
Yes, thank you, Babu. Engaging with the end user is crucial for us, really. Because if we ask a public safety professional, do you need a new radio? They will say, no, we don't. because they trust the system that they're using. However, from the outside, you can see, well, they don't have the latest technology. They don't have the latest information exchange capability. So engaging them right from the start is been crucial. Keeping them involved throughout the program of technological development with regular touch points is absolutely vital. And it helps both the responder community to understand what's coming and get used to the fact that some new technology is coming and they'll have to put away their old technology. But it also helps for technology developers as well to make sure that what they're building is not kind of a checkbox exercise where, yes, it fulfills the standard, therefore the users should use it. Yes, fulfill the standards, but also have the acceptance of the end users to know that they're going to choose to use it. And that's the important thing. They must choose to use the technology when it's ready. Otherwise, they will continue to use their old technology because, frankly, they're not technology people. These are people who go out there and save lives. They're not technology people. They need the technology to help their response and make the response more efficient and save more lives in a larger scale. But really, the individuals, you know, they have their own job to do. They don't want to be playing with technology. Some will, but not all of them. But they don't want to be playing with the technology. It's got to be kind of pervasive in their day job. And it's very, very important to have that dialogue throughout the technological development, such that, you know, that the technology is fit for purpose at the end of the day. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, David. I think you really highlighted that generation is not which technology generation is not what is important. That users, what it provides, what services, what kind of facility that provides is the most important.
Indeed.
Can I now request Mr. Lalit to give his views?
Sure, I would certainly agree with what David said. And let me give my perspective of what we have seen at IDRBT. I take the quote again on cloud computing. When it started, we started with involving banks to talk about it and doing some training awareness programs. By the time that they started getting comfortable, our understanding of the technology also certainly improved because we understand the user requirements better. And what it helped is we are certainly part of some of the committees of the MIT on cloud, or committee of RBI on outsourcing guidelines, which encompasses cloud computing. We also contributed to the BIS working group on the ISO standards for cloud computing. It's 2017 and 18 on cloud. When we started looking at 5G, one of the initial reactions that we started getting from the banks is, yeah, do they need to start thinking about how they ask for the applications RFP? Because if they are buying some applications, they want to make sure that it is working for the next 5 years at least. And one of the questions that came from the largest public sector bank is, do I need to start factoring something in my application requirements so that when 5G becomes a reality, I'm ready for it? That's certainly very exciting for us, right? They're thinking through the problem. They're trying to make sure their investments are taken care now so that they're ready for the future. And that's happening because we are talking to them. In the other case, what we are also doing with the bank is actually ask employees of the bank, sit with us, work with us on the use cases. This is again helping us, making sure that banks are getting the comfort of the technology. And when the person goes back to the branch or the bank, there is obviously some technology understanding there. He or she is carrying back and would be the ambassador for us in promoting the technology. Undoubtedly, the involvement of user community is required. We're also planning to do some workshops, some trainings, because that's also a mandate from IDRBT in terms of how we build the awareness so that they don't get caught by surprise on what 5G is. But certainly today, there is that initial reaction. I wouldn't say resistance because they are seeing how the technology is changing, but there is sudden reaction saying that this is something new again I have to deal with. We are hoping that would get sorted out soon.
Okay, thanks, Lalit. I think I should like to close the session, but just one question has come from the audience. So it's, since one question has come, if I can ask Mr. Andreas to respond it quickly, because the question is related to, are we expecting private 5G to be used in vertical? So if you're looking at manufacturing sector, if you're having these 5G systems, are we thinking of having private 5G to service provide these networks, or is it shared, or some kind of a model of non-public networks that you're looking at?
Yeah, no, very good question, and I briefly touched it in my short presentation. So, of course, private 5G networks will play a very important role in manufacturing, but from my perspective, also in other verticals. I mean, if you look at agriculture or at construction or mining and so on, so there's a lot of potential and also strong demand from the end users for private networks. The question is, what is a private network? And as I also briefly mentioned, so it should not be considered to be black and white. It means public or private in the sense of you have your fully own infrastructure on premise and you operate it on your own, but there are many different flavors, right, of how you may do this. And this then depends probably on the vertical and on the concrete enterprise, if they want to go for a fully private solution, or if it's maybe a cooperation with a network operator, or maybe also fully operated by a network operator, right? I mean, also network operator could set up and deploy a private network which is decoupled from the public network, and that's also a good thing from my personal perspective, right? So that suddenly there's a lot of more flexibility how to use 5G with all these new deployment and operating models, and also of course this opens door for a lot of innovation. So there are new players now coming into the ecosystem, providing dedicated solutions for private networks, be it management solutions, infrastructure solutions, services, and so on. So this will also stimulate competition and trigger innovation. And from an end user perspective, that's always good. So I think there's many more exciting things to come. But again, I want to make clear, so private does not necessarily mean everything is done by yourself. So it just means there are now many more options how to use 5G and how to unlock all the benefits that come along with it. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Andreas. I think we can close the session with that. I think 55 minutes may not be sufficient for such a broad topic, considering the kind of use cases we are looking at for 5G. And I suppose with this, it would have answered partially whatever our chair, Kumar Shivarajan, was mentioning, that there is enough in 5G which is not there in 4G, which would really make sufficient use cases for the operators to and the market to bloom for 5G. And this is just a beginning. I think a lot of things to come in the future. It's just the 5G technology is defined. I think use cases is set now for the next few years of when we see 5G growing in the market. So thanks to all the panel members for your time and the expert opinions and the comments that have shared with the audience. Thank you, and I hand over to the chair.
I think Dr. Kumar may have disconnected, unfortunately, so I'll just take over here.
No, I am here, but please do take over, Rajesh.
Oh, okay.
I already set it up that you would introduce Dr. Badri, so I will watch, and then I'll take over from you afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. So wonderful. Thank you, Babu, for that panel. As every session has been, it has been really informative, and thanks to all the panelists and the speakers before them. We were going to have a short break, but in the interest of time, I think we will just continue on. I'll just revert to maybe Bindu to see if there is. Are we running the promos before the session, or?
Yes, sir. Once you say, I'll be ending this session and start the next session immediately with the video.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.